Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun departure from, designing t-shirts for Insane Clown Posse.
Hello and welcome to Did I Do That? It's a podcast about graphic designers and the mistakes that we make on the way to making just about anything at all, because it's all part of the process. I am none other than Sean Schumacher, and joining me today, it is a very special guest. He's a senior designer and art director who spent more than a decade with Nike before moving on to some of the world's other sports apparel giants, Hoka, The North Face, and Adidas. And he's also an incredible illustrator who's worked with the likes of UNICEF, Atlantic Records, Target, and more, both here in Portland and before that in his hometown of Minneapolis as the work steady. It's Colin Strandberg. Hi!
Wow, good morning. That was amazing. That recap of my first half of my life, or third of my life.
I feel like that is a very common reaction. We as graphic designers very rarely get to hear ourselves described in any way, let alone summarized.
Yes.
So for one, we don't often have those descriptions at the ready, which is why I started writing them. But it is a very weird thing to be like, oh, this is the stuff that I did.
Yeah.
Oh, I see now.
Yeah, I did that. I lived that life and still living it, but in a different context.
You lived through it and past it, and now you're
survived.
in it. Yeah. I have survived. Well, I wanted to start out this episode, which is a very special one because it is our season finale. This is the finale of season 6, I think.
No way.
Probably not a good sign that I don't remember what season it is. Especially after I spent, if this is season 6, all of last season saying what season it is. I wanted to start it out with something very special. So I wanted to share. This is actually just a little secret with you, just you and the listener. Can you keep a secret, Colin?
I can. I can.
Thank you.
Pretty good at keeping secrets.
Well, this is a wish that I have, and I think it's it's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately. If I could be anything at all, I wish that I were an Oscar Mayer wiener. That's what I'd truly like to be. Because if I were an Oscar Mayer wiener, an ad agency would trick a major meat manufacturer into paying Fox Sports and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway just an obscene amount of money to have their famous hot dog shaped cars compete in what is maybe the most and least compelling race to watch that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh my gosh.
What do you think of my wish?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I kind of forgot Oscar Mayer wieners were a staple of my childhood, and then now there's so many different types, so I kind of forgot. But I mean, yeah, it's the Oscar Mayer wiener vehicle. I mean, that's
iconic.
Iconic. Yeah.
Now, how would you feel if there were perhaps 6 of those Oscar Mayer wienermobiles, maybe competing in a race on a famous motor speedway?
Yeah. Would they be different colors? Would they have...
No, they're not putting that much effort into this.
Okay. So they've
all
got
the some
same
decals.
All the same. Yeah. Okay.
Definitely all the same. To go behind the bit, I'm, of course, talking about the Weenie 500, an incredible actual race that happened at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway yesterday as we record this.
Oh.
This is, in fact, an actual thing that you can go and watch. And that people did apparently pay money to attend.
No way.
As part of, I learned that this is a pre-existing thing and not just due to Oscar Mayer's presence, an event called Carb Day. Carb Day at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Again, nothing to do with hot dogs. It just happens to be that the hot dog race happened on Carb Day. I couldn't figure out what Carb Day actually means.
Well, you made me think. I had the picture of the what is it? The hot dog Nathan's hot dogs.
Of course, the famous Nathan's.
Yeah. So I mean, these incredible events that are, circulate around hot dog, world. Hot dog culture is amazing. So yeah.
I mean, I will say, I'm sure Nathan Famous's hot dog eating contest, of which Joey Chestnut is just such a reigning champion. That has probably put Oscar Mayer on their heels a little bit, trying to figure out what is going to bring people back into the fold of their various folded meats and hot dogs and other things. And so I watched this race. I got a YouTube video and I watched the entire thing. And I have just so many thoughts, so many incredible things from it. What may be the least compelling race that I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've seen Turtles race. Similar speed, gotta say. So several things that I learned. There are 6 Wienermobiles, not just one, but 6.
Okay.
And all of them were on the track that day, which I feel like was a danger, given that, like, what if something were to befall these Wienermobiles on the racetrack? There's no designated survivor. Who's going to take over the fold of the meat-shaped car, sort of like world? Are we just going to have to paint a VW bus like a Spam can and say that that's going to be our new favorite as a culture?
Maybe. Yeah. And I mean, I think like you look at the Cybertruck is kind of has a spam. It has a aluminum looking, food container look to it. So maybe
come now, Spam cans are made out of higher quality metals than the Cybertruck.
True. Very true. Yeah. Yeah. Even though I did see in the local area a couple of years ago, I think I saw this was like right when the Cybertrucks came out and you started seeing them around in the public. I think it was outside of a grocery store and it was wrapped in like a deli meat. It was no, but this is true. It was like it was wrapped to look like a sandwich, like a Subway sandwich.
Oh God.
But I think the company that was using I don't know if they own the truck, maybe they're renting it, but it was a vegan deli meat company.
Wow.
And so it was very, very strange.
That's fascinating for so many reasons. For one, because as someone who eats a lot of vegan meat, I wouldn't necessarily recommend picturing it close up. It's usually not a very appealing looking thing.
Oh yeah, the resolution was amazing on this thing. Yeah.
So many DPI on this deli meat on this Cybertruck.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I look forward to seeing that on the secondary market for just pennies on the dollar for what they paid.
The wrap doesn't come off. Sorry.
I think that is true about the Cybertruck wraps.
Yeah.
Like, because it is just metal, I don't think they come off very cleanly, if at all. So yeah, please, if anyone sees the resale link, which I guarantee is going up soon, please forward it to me. It delights me. But so to get back to the race, one thing that I think maybe they thought through a little bit but didn't think through all the way is that they have sort of punished their commentator team. They had an actual commentator team, and they asked them to narrate this race. But normal race cars, they move really fast. And so there's a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And these don't, because they're sort of like parade floats. So I wanted to pull some choice quotes, which I'm sure came from a copywriter at this ad agency because they're so specific.
Okay.
Number one quote, "For me, the most impressive wiener of the race so far." This was an actual line delivered by these incredible commentators. "And they haven't hit their top speed yet, climbing to 26, now 27 miles per hour. And they'll hit that top speed on the back straight somewhere." So again, most of this race did occur in the sort of 20 mile per hour zone. So really, really great. There's a point where a bird flies by and you're just reminded of how slowly the cars are traveling, that this bird is just
flying
rocketing
past it. Yeah.
30 minutes ago when they rounded turn 2, who would have thought it would be this close when they rounded turn 3?
Oh my gosh. It's better. Better and better.
Yeah. Topping out at a sensational 60 miles per hour, these hot dogs are the absolute limits of technological innovation. Our culture is doomed. Oh, no. And then, of course, my favorite. There's no greater feeling in the world than firing your weenie across the yard of bricks.
Wow. This is like a family friendly. So the entendres here.
I think that is also partly why I'm like, they probably did have to get an ad agency to come up with something. So they didn't come up with something on the fly. The other thing that sort of I feel like is the giveaway of that is that there are faked moments clearly in the race. One of the Wienermobiles overheats, by which I mean a bunch of steam comes out of it. I would say the wrong part for there to be an engine in. And then the commentator team just fire off, I would say, like about 20 puns about smoked buns and overcooking it and things like that.
I like that.
That feel like, I'm sure they're professionals, but it does really seem like that's a note that was given to them in the script. There's a run of show with that event noted out and then just this list that they can go through.
Like at this point, you're going to see smoke coming from this area that's not the engine. it's all a part of the show.
Exactly. It was a come from behind victory, not to give away who the winning wiener is. But that is really surprising given that they mostly traveled in a completely straight line the entire time. Something that's very noticeable when your car is like 27 feet long.
Yeah. 27 foot long. Foot. Yeah, that's right.
One of the more depressing parts is that the winner's circle was renamed the Wiener Circle. And instead of champagne, the winner was doused in mustard.
Oh, I like that.
You like that?
Yeah, I do.
What I like about it is that a real person had to be covered in mustard for it. And that was their reward for winning the race.
Much better mustard than ketchup. I mean, I'm a mustard
Oh,
fan.
really?
I'm a mustard guy, yeah.
You're pro mustard.
Yeah, I'm pro mustard. So, I mean, I would definitely be... I'd rather take mustard shower than ketchup.
You know what? I hadn't really thought of this, but you're a Midwest guy, so you probably have a lot of relationship with a very specific kind of hot dog, as many Midwestern places often have.
Yeah.
So it's more a mustard dog for you.
Yeah, it's more mustard dog, some relish, some sauerkraut, just things that are pickled.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Peppers, different things. But yeah, I mean, I think there was definitely a Midwestern type of hot dog that was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. What I don't like is, I would say the thing that really takes this from being a fun experience to being a not fun experience for me, which is, of course, because we are in the dying days of this civilization, of course there's a DraftKings sponsored gambling pool for this fake race of 27-foot long hot dog cars. Free to play, but I don't know. So, yeah.
Curse you, DraftKings.
Why did we need that bit? I'm sure there was some money that came that agency's way. It steams me a little bit. It steams my buns just a tiny bit, that we just need to get gambling in all of these things, even really stupid things.
I see what you did there. You just had a...
Well, the agency provided me this copy, you see. I have to use it.
Yes.
There's a little marker that says required next to it. So I have to go through and read all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what... You got me right there. I'm just like, yes.
That's what I love to do, is just get people on, that little extra twist at the end. But Colin, you didn't come here to talk about hot dog racing. Unless you did, in which case I'm terribly surprised. Because even I didn't know this was happening until like 4 p.m. yesterday. Yeah. You came here to talk about kind of your trajectory through design, the path that brought you here. And you started out in Minneapolis. You were an artsy kid growing up.
Sure. Yeah, I was. Minneapolis is now being a Portlandian for the last 15 years. I mean, there's a lot of parallel similarities in the culture. And, I came up. Yeah, Minneapolis is, they have some great studios there,
Oh, yeah.
Especially, I had friends that were working with like Burlesque of North America, if you're familiar with them.
Oh, yes,
posters, and what was Aesthetic Apparatus was another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those were the guys that I looked up to, and there was a great design culture there. So I felt at home, and then, going to school. But, I was also doing illustration. So that was kind of the initial schooling, was learning how to be an illustrator. And then that changed once I learned how to use Illustrator and Live Trace.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So you were doing things that were illustration-y like in high school, like even before college?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of, I feel like in high school, maybe my teachers saw what I was doing and they're like, oh, you should look at people like Milton Glaser and
sure.
and Pushpin Studios. And that was like my initial love of illustration and design, because I saw that as like, oh, they're bridging, like they're not just drawing, they're putting stuff on packaging and what have you. But it just seemed like, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to do this crossover of like illustrating and design.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that what it would become until college.
Well, speaking of college, so 2000 you enroll at the College of Visual Arts in St. Paul, the unfortunately no longer with us College of Visual Arts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such is the case of so many colleges out here too. But like, at what point did you decide that was going to be a path? Because if you're going there, you really have to be quite committed.
Yes. I mean, just a little bit of a backstory. I started my college career at MCAD.
Oh, did you really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I went there for a semester and I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. And, everybody, and I was surrounded by fine arts majors, and it's like, oh, that seems really, they just seem really stressed out all the time. They seem so stressed out. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to go that route.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I need to step away and just, look at what I want to do next. I took a year off and then I went back to College of Visual Arts because it just felt like smaller. It was across the river. There's Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so I went from Minneapolis to St. Paul, smaller town community vibe.
And a much smaller school, too.
Oh, yeah. There's like 300 students.
Yeah.
And the school was in like an old mansion, just had a lot of history, and it was cool. But yeah, I mean, I at that point I was like illustration. I took some illustration courses and they were great. But then, yeah, I took my first design course and I was like, this, like everything that I want to do in creativity seems to be like pointing me in this direction. And it feels like everything's streamlined and I'm able to do what I want much quicker. And I think it was more like, especially when it comes to like effort and stuff, I'm like, I go this far and then I have to like backtrack, and it just seems like such a effort to do it. So I was like, oh, now I can get on the computer and I can just like hit control.
Yeah.
I can like step back and undo what I've done and I don't have to like get too self-critical about it. And I can just be like, oh yeah, I can start from scratch. I can, so it just made a lot of sense for me to take my creativity onto the computer screen. But that was also at the time where we were like still learning how to ink logos with like India ink and stuff. And
oh, sure.
So you got to learn like this was like 2001, 2002 maybe. So this was like maybe the last time you're going to see people that were designing logos by hand. I don't know. Maybe they still are. I don't know. But,
I mean, you were definitely probably still presenting things on the black matte board that
yes,
I was still being
exactly.
taught was the way that you were presenting things in 2009. Well, after I think it would have been still the case.
So yeah, it did continue. So I mean, yeah, that was and yeah, maybe I just seeing things from a design standpoint, like building a concept on that board and then transferring that to the computer was awesome. So that really made things easier as a transition in school.
Oh yeah, and I mean, one of the other things that's happening around this time is music. Do you want to tell us a little bit about With Dead Hands Rising?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was in a metal band, metalcore band, metal hardcore. That was like the thing at the time, and we were we had it was a local band that I started out playing bass, and then I moved to vocals because the guys in the band thought I could scream. So then I did that, and then it was fun for a few years, and we did some tours and got to and I did, so that was also a design connection because I was doing all the merchandise for the band. I was doing all the t-shirts and doing the album covers and doing everything. So it was like, oh, this is really fun. Like I love doing merchandise. I was working at a screen print shop in college as well, so I printed all the t-shirts. And then I started like, all the other local bands we were playing with, they were coming to me and be like, hey, we'd love you to design a t-shirt for us, but could you also print it?
Oh.
And yeah, so I became the go-to for that for a while.
Wow. So you really like kind of turning just this thing that you're interested in into this like essentially blossoming like career across this thriving music scene.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we had some local kind of regional notoriety between Minneapolis and Milwaukee and
did you ever
Chicago.
Can I tell you, it actually extends further than you think. I was able to find With Dead Hands Rising has a German but not English Wikipedia page.
That doesn't surprise me because yeah, there are some like fans out there that like I still keep in contact with the guys. There was another label that reached out to us not too long ago that was like, or one of the guys that they're still kind of a band.
Yeah, they kind of reformed a little bit.
Yeah. And then they were asked to do a vinyl re-release of an album that I was involved with. And then they came to me like, hey, do you want to do it? Do you want to do you think it's a good idea? And I was like, yeah, heck yeah, let's do it. It sounds fun, you know? And then but I think there were people that were like fans that we were finding out about in like Russia and other countries and stuff. So yeah, German Wikipedia does not surprise me.
Well, I was also able to find a 2002, someone has ripped a DVD of a performance of you really belting it out, I gotta say.
Okay.
Where Wings Become Weapons 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah.
In what looks to be a boiler room, if I'm being generous.
Yeah. So this video was shot by a friend of mine who actually, I don't know if I'm able to name drop on this podcast, but yeah, he was one of my best friends in college. His name's Jamie Erickson. He's a very well-known designer in Minneapolis. He owned a brand for a while, like an interactive brand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, called Seventh Sin. So he shot this video because he was really well-versed in everything videography, and
it's definitely a lot higher quality than I would have expected from that era of like mini DV cams.
Yeah, he was like, hey, I have all this gear that I think he rented, and we had a practice space in a old building in the basement, and it just kind of fit the vibe for the it fit the vibe for the music. It had this kind of like dark, dismal, you know, there was definitely an aesthetic with this type of music. It was very
it seems like there should be a lot of pipes full of steam running above you, which there are.
Right. Yes. Lots of pipes of steam. Oh my gosh. I can't believe you found this. We had like the lighting rented, and I think I had some buddies from College of Visual Arts that showed up. It was really kind of, it was a fun time. I remember this. Oh my God. This is so funny.
How long has it been since you saw this?
Oh boy. 15 years probably.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the person who posted this. I don't know who that is. I thought maybe it was Jamie because he, I think he keeps track of most of this stuff. Maybe.
Oh, really?
Maybe not. Jamie, if you're out there, he probably still has the tapes, like the
oh, sure, the master tapes.
The master tapes. Yeah. So, wow. This is amazing. Yeah, this is like one of those things where it's like a different life, like a different person, you know. I'm a Pisces. I'm like a very like low key, like chill guy and stuff, and
yet you don't
have an angry muscle in my body.
The screaming, the continuous screaming in this video. I did have to turn it down just because it was like it's going to be so hard to edit this part otherwise. But like, you maintain a almost continuous scream throughout this entire song that is 6 minutes or something like that long. Oh, it's still going. Oh yeah, 7 minutes long.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to if you were like to be a singer of a metal and hardcore band. You have to be able to have the chops, as they say. You got to have the chops to know your instrument. My instrument was my vocal cords, I guess. And it's funny too because I was talking to the guys in the band, and nowadays like there's like a science, like they were showing me some video of a singer who like they were doing scientific studies on his voice and stuff.
Oh yes.
And at the time I was like, I'm just belting this out and my voice would go hoarse, and you know, I would lose my voice for a few days, and but
it doesn't exactly sound like a very sustainable practice, I will say.
No, definitely not. No, it's I don't think I could do it anymore. Like, I don't think it would be possible. Like they actually, like I said, you know, they're still somewhat of a band and they play, because a lot of bands like that are having this kind of like renaissance, I think.
Oh yes.
But it's just funny because the whole music thing was obviously a huge part of my life.
How could it not be? Like you literally put out albums.
Yeah.
But also you're attached to a lot of like albums on Metal Archives as the art director.
Oh my gosh.
Metal Archives, what a delightful site to have learned about.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's actually album reviews on there too.
Yeah.
There is a review of your second album where I would say writ large, the band maybe is not well received by this reviewer, whose name is Croza.
Croza.
Sounds really like a real name for sure.
Sounds like a metal band name.
Although does compliment Colin Strandberg's vocal ramblings.
Oh, the ramblings.
Your
Okay,
ramblings.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. There's a lot of meanings of the word rambling, like especially if we're like bringing in the British sense of it. I don't think screaming is one of the things that I would categorize as a rambling, but
no. Yeah.
maybe Crow's experience is very different
Crow's
than mine.
experience, yes. Yeah, could be.
Everyone's screaming in Crow's world, and so,
What constitutes rambling in their world?
That's a very, just a very gentle scream is what Crowza thinks of as rambling. Yeah. Let me get back to here. Yeah, because I mean, this is while you're in school, while you're studying like design and illustration.
Yeah.
Do you remember some of the other stuff that you were doing alongside your musical career?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, it's funny because there was that point where I had to make a decision of where I was going to go. I was going to continue with my education, or was I going to do the band?
Which, again, you released albums. Plural.
In retrospect, it's like, I don't know how I had the time to do that because like I was in school full time and in a band and had a break from school, and we would go on tour for a week and a half or whatever. But yeah, I think it was just at a point where I was in my like junior year and I was thinking, I see what's coming next year with my senior year and establishing a thesis, senior thesis and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know if I can like keep going this way with the band and give it 100%, and so I was like, I gotta choose where I'm gonna go. So I chose school. I left the band. Luckily, they were able to find a replacement in a guy who still friends with to this day. Great guy, and they kept going. So yeah, but I mean, at the same time of school, I was working, doing screen printing and stuff, and I think that's also kind of led to my appreciation or a love for like the printed arts. So getting into posters and like I said before, there was a pretty big community of poster printing designers, in Minneapolis. Very thriving in Minneapolis. And so I got really interested in that and never opened my own studio, but it was just kind of the place to be at the time.
But I mean, once you do, kind of get out of school, that's when you are leveraging some of your music connections too.
Yeah. And I think it's important to talk about because it really talks about my origins, my genesis story of design when I started out after school. Because I was kind of like involved in the scene at the time. There was a lot of like, bands that either I was friends with or had friends, and actually like some people in bands who were also designers, and we just kind of like connected via the merchandise. So yeah, I was doing like a lot for like the emo, like the My Chemical Romance type bands at the time.
Absolutely.
And their first kind of maiden voyage going around. I know they've come back, but
I believe maiden voyage is the correct term because I'm sure that kind of band is now doing those cruise ship shows where they.
Yes. I think that's a thing. I know
the
that's
emo cruise.
Yeah, it's such a weird like full circle of like bands, having credibility and then playing cruise ships.
Well, the other thing that changed in that time period is we all stopped paying for music. So
yeah, I know.
There's no such thing as selling out now because God knows there's no way to survive as a musician otherwise. We need these cruise ships.
Yes, we need the cruise ships. The cruise ships need to keep sailing. If they asked us to do a chartered cruise and they asked me to be involved, let's do it. Let's get
that up on German Wikipedia. Yeah. I think you can make that happen.
Yeah, cruise the Bahamas in style.
Well, it'll probably be like cruise the Black Sea or something like that.
Cruise the Black Sea. Yeah, somewhere around Norway and Sweden, and I mean that's kind of like the epicenter. That's the origin point for a lot of this stuff. So
that's incredible.
It's so cold, and it makes sense too because it's like we were from Minneapolis, and it's so cold there. So like there's a coldness to it.
It is so often the case with metal. Yeah, it is something that requires cold in order to really thrive.
Well, it just gets so cold you can't go outside, so you just like pent up energy and anger and. Because you're indoors for for 2 weeks, and cabin fever starts sinking in, and then you're just like, oh yeah, like I'm not angry, it's just cabin fever. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there is a weird thing too, yeah, and about cold temperatures and angry music. Yeah, some of like, yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys in the band I played with, they were really into like stuff like that, like black metal, Norwegian black metal and death metal and stuff. And
Oh, sure.
and I learned about that, and I'm like, these guys, like, they seem genuinely like angry people. Like I'm not angry. I just somehow this is fun. I'm having a good time doing this. So yeah, I was doing, that was a majority of my work at the time, was like working with bands, and then I got connected with merch companies that were representing different artists and stuff, and getting paid by the merch companies, and which was a cool gig because it paid my like $400 rent at the time, and like core, basic essentials and stuff. And
Oh, yeah.
I was able to, it was good. And then I started getting like some really kind of like wacky requests from like merch companies to work for different artists and stuff. And that brought me to, I was contacted by this company that represented, I don't know if you're familiar with this artists, the Insane Clown Posse.
I'm very familiar with the Insane Clown Posse.
Okay.
There's few clown posses that I know of that are as insane.
Yeah.
If you have an insaner clown posse, we'll give you ours for free. That's a big community too.
I knew of them, and I had friends in high school who listened to the Insane Clown Posse, and I was just like, what is this? This seems so ludicrous. And it's I just didn't get it. And
and to think that there was an artist at the time called Ludacris that was not nearly as ludicrous.
Yeah, I don't know if there was any crossover with the two artists, but anyways, they so they reached out, and then I was like, it's paying pretty decently, so and I'm I have no shame at the moment. So yeah, I took on the project and did some merchandise, some t-shirt designs for Insane Clown Posse, which was just
God.
And wow, my eyes were open to a whole new world of design of what was possible with t-shirt design. No, the cool part about that project that I remember was that they came prepared and organized. Like, they gave me a file of assets.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because this group, the Insane Clown Posse, has they have this whole story arc, and they have like different characters and all that.
There is like a lore, isn't there?
Yeah. Like each album represents a new character, and it's all kind of leading up to something. I think there was some apocalyptic.
Oh God, there's
story
a
arc.
Cinematic universe for the Insane Clown Posse. Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. So they gave me this file of assets, and they were like, okay, we want you to use these here and there. And it was, but the overall theme was, add as much fire and smoke and neon colors and clown related paraphernalia, and and they have these like,
what job doesn't start with that directive though, really?
Yeah, they have these ridiculous like icons and logos and stuff. Oh my gosh, it was obviously memorable, very memorable. And yeah, it's, to this day, I still look at, I went on eBay recently, and, it's funny because a lot of bands, their merchandise is, collectible.
Oh, God, yes.
And so, like, a lot of bands' T-shirts, even, like, bands of the time that I grew up in that scene, are, like, you can find T-shirts for, like, $150, $200 for, like, a worn Gildan brand T-shirt or whatever. But some of these like ICP T-shirts they're collectible items now, and I'm like, whoa, wow, this is. But there's also the dedicated, what do they call it, the family that the Juggalos.
Yes.
So yeah, they probably snatch that stuff up in a heartbeat. It's very collectible.
That is the fascinating thing. Is in a weird way, I feel like they've only gotten more famous and more powerful. But it's also a thing where like they've kind of built a very inclusive community, and that's like
very inclusive.
Part of why they have never been outside of work.
Yeah.
That being said, the aesthetics are overwhelming in these t-shirts.
Yeah.
You were not kidding. There's a fire one that has so much fire and so much more fire than I would have thought could be on a t-shirt.
Yeah. I mean, that was when I was using Photoshop to the extent of what I was able to do, and, putting as many effects and filters and, what can you do with fire? It's like, it's endless.
Yeah. What I'm looking at is a saw blade, I'm realizing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you might be like, saw blade, that's metal. That's not going to start on fire. No. You're wrong about that.
Right.
The saw blade is on fire.
The saw blade's on fire. Yeah. I mean, in this world, it's possible, I think I did one where it was like a manhole cover, and then there was like, they wanted it to look like smoke was coming out of the manhole and like a weird ominous green light. Yeah.
Oh yes, I think I'm looking at that one now. Yeah, there's it's sort of a crack in the ground that a similarly cracked Insane Clown Posse text is kind of emerging from.
Right.
That sort of blue and green kind of looks like the Earth, so maybe it's sort of falling through a portal, presumably on the moon, towards the Earth. And when it arrives there, it's really going to be super powerful.
Right. Yeah.
That's what the movie Armageddon was about, was preventing this collision.
Preventing this collision specifically. Exactly. Yeah. And it's, last thing I heard about them, they were like, put on some like government list as being considered a gang or something.
Oh, no.
And, yeah.
Oh,
or like
no.
like certified as terrorists, or it was really surreal. Yeah.
Yikes. Well, sorry, family. I hope everything's okay. And terrifying. But yeah, you're doing a lot of work for a lot of different things. You become a staff illustrator for Accelerator magazine.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun departure from, designing t-shirts for Insane Clown Posse. It was, that was a great experience, because it was like Accelerator was a magazine that was really focused on the electronic music scene, and I was always kind of adjacently into.
Yeah.
But they put me on as like a staff illustrator.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really fun. I did little editorial illustrations and did a couple covers, which I was stoked about. And it was at a time where if you were working with some magazines, that was the coolest gig ever.
Yeah.
Working with a magazine, especially a music magazine. So yeah, that was really fun.
And they are only recently no longer with us. So it is a shame, but I think it's also a good reminder of why you should go support the magazine industry.
Please do,
because there's a lot of really cool work that's happening in magazines, and I certainly hope we sent some subscribers Wired's way from our episode at the start of this season. One other thing that you did during this time, you did some work for UNICEF. Weirdly, through an agency I knew of as a child, R&R Partners in Vegas.
Yes.
You did a little spot. I believe this was sort of encouraging people to not buy bottled water, but to use tap water.
Right.
Now, there's an inherent problem there. I don't know if you've ever been to Las Vegas, but the tap water is poison. You shouldn't drink it.
I was there once, and it was in the heat of the sun. It was like 110 degrees each day. So yeah. I was trying to find water wherever possible.
I understand where UNICEF's heart is at, but also you shouldn't drink water with rocket fuel in it. It's sort of famously not going to be healthy for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a crazy project too, because I worked on a couple other projects with them that was around the automotive industry, and it was like for car shows and stuff, and designing like just promotional material and for some odd brands at this time, like remember Scion?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, that's your other niche is like the era of kind of boxy cars.
Yeah.
You do work for Scion and Kia.
Yeah, Scion and Kia. Yeah, Scion was that the car that had the weird wraparound, like the window?
Oh no, see, that's the other one. That's the Nissan Cube.
That's the Nissan Cube. Okay.
Which season 5 listeners will remember abducted me.
Oh boy.
At the end of that season.
Yeah, so there were some weird names for weird brands of cars at the time. No, Yeah, so R&R, they, for the Unicef project, they just wanted me to kind of basically design like storyboards, but then it was like, okay, we want to illustrate kind of more of your, what you think of Vegas and old time Vegas. So I brought in like, it was a more collage and then like my illustration style, and they had somebody animate it all, which was amazing because I was just illustrating. And yeah, I thought it turned out really cool. That was one of the first projects where I actually saw my work like in motion,
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, the possibilities here are amazing.
And it's kind of weirdly early days for that in 2009 too. Like, I mean, animation on TV was not really a thing that you saw. Like a spot was almost always just shot video because there wasn't the budget to try to do something like that.
Well, and this was of the era as well at the time was like motion graphics were really taking off. Comedy Central, I remember they were
like
certain, maybe MTV. They had these like amazing animations, and they were like really crazy kind of like illustrations that were animated for their like little spot commercials. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that, and I want to figure out how to either like work for a company that does that or start a company. I think I talked to a couple people who are animators in Minneapolis and never went anywhere, unfortunately, but it was like, that's what I want to do. Yeah. Because I thought that was so cool. It was just like these like really weird illustrations that were animated, and seeing them on TV and, in this context was so cool.
Your next big move, since we're getting up into that era, is like you end up in Portland working for Nike, a company that definitely had the resources to do something like this. How did you decide to move to Portland? Like, I know you'd kind of worked for Nike in the t-shirt side up until this point, but like not as a like designer on staff.
In a freelance context, I was working with the action sports teams at the time, and a mutual friend of ours.
Past guest Jason Sturgill.
Yes. Shout out to Jason. He was my first connection with both Nike and Portland, and he hired me on to do some t-shirt graphics for, it was like Nike SB or something at the time. I was still in Minneapolis at the time, and I was doing it remote, and he just had me do some graphics for different t-shirt projects and apparel. And it's funny because I came out for a interview for a job in 2008. So like right around the time of the the recession.
A famously great time.
Yeah, perfect timing. And oddly enough, that job didn't work out.
I can't imagine why.
But that job was shockingly the job that I later had at Nike when I was there full time, like later, like down the road. Yeah, it was like looking back, I was like, that was basically the same job I'm doing right now. And I didn't get the job at the time.
You got it the long way around.
Yeah, the long way around. So 2010, I moved out here. I got a job with the graphics studio or the art department at the time. They had many names. And it was just, probably like 20 designers. And we were all kind of housed under one unit where we were facilitating all the different categories of Nike with predominantly t-shirts because the business for t-shirts was so big. And so, I was brought out to help out in design graphic t-shirts for Nike in various different categories. And then, it kind of took off from there.
It really did take off from there. Like you stay, in that initial role for about 4 years, and then you're climbing the ladder. You're moving up in the Nike hierarchy. You end up a couple of years later as the senior global product graphic designer for Nike Sportswear.
Yeah.
A pretty big title.
Yeah. It was, at the time, it was like predominantly apparel again, but it was a big team too, because we worked with apparel designers, footwear designers. Yeah, I was able to learn a lot about just like general product creation.
Yeah.
Which was so cool to see and be able to, travel and go see how things are made and whatnot. But I think that was one of those roles that really put me into what I'm still doing today.
Yes.
But learning as much as I could about making products, obviously the Nike way, and taking those tools and taking that experience and being able to utilize it for future after Nike future projects.
Yeah, like as you're kind of like figuring out like this transition into Nike, like what other stuff are you doing? Like what are you keeping the illustration thing on the side or
trying to? Yeah. There's always been that constant trying to stay connected to the roots of illustration and whatnot. And it's, it kind of comes and goes, but it's always trying to refine what it is who I am as an illustrator.
Yeah.
Taking on projects where I can here and there. I kind of feel like I'm going through a little bit of a renaissance now, where I'm like, okay, like this is what I went to school for. This has always been a passion of mine, so maybe I need to revisit it more and more. But yeah, I mean, I think it's always been there with me, and trying to find ways to bring it out when I can has been super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a special thing. Like what sorts of stuff do you end up doing at Nike as you're climbing the ladder?
Certain things in terms of what context?
I mean, I guess if there are any things that come up that are like, what would be, maybe lessons that you learned or something like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I learned a lot about myself.
Oh, sure.
As a creative, but also as a human being. I think being in a company like that and, trying to find ways to be more proactive about things, be more, I guess, kind of like intelligent emotionally and conceptually. And, so I think there's a lot of learnings to being working in a environment like that. So I think it was a constant, like, kind of like checking myself of like who I am as a creative, who I am as a human being, and how do I best, put my best foot forward and show who I am and not try to kind of, because it's easy to, in a place like that, it's easy to kind of just like kind of go into autopilot a little bit.
Oh yeah. I mean, Nike, like I feel like there's this idea that Nike is this, everything's just, very, very like goal oriented, but it is a very process oriented place from what I understand. Like,
yes. There's definitely a process, and there's, there's a way to survive there.
Yeah.
But, and a lot of times I feel like for me personally, it was like stepping away from it and seeing, what I learned and who I am and what I want to do next, and kind of, just feeling more willing or more able to take on what's next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that is a good lesson to have in the docket. In 2020, you leave Nike.
Yeah.
Right at the start of the pandemic. That's a great fun time.
Oh,
I was reading that was actually your last day at Nike is the same day that your daughter took her first steps.
Oh my God. Yes.
Which is pretty wild.
Yes.
Kind of some big moments all in one go.
Yeah. Yeah. My youngest. Yeah. Yeah. She was, I mean, I've got two that are like, one of them's definitely a COVID baby, but it's just they were both kind of like so young at the time. But yeah, she took her first steps, and but I felt like what I did was I went from Nike to Hoka, and it was like going from a giant company to a startup in many ways. And I was like, learning so much about I felt like I had a good foundation of how to make that transition.
Yeah.
But working for a big company for 10 years and knowing how to work a certain way, and then you just completely pivot to working for a company that is in the same industry, but it's, they're just building momentum.
Well, and it is such a specific thing with Nike too, because I think that is part of the like process oriented thing is like you essentially have to learn the Nike language, and very specific, like so specific terms for so many like different parts of the process and different kinds of assets.
Yes.
It's good knowledge to have, but it's also like stuff that is complex to move into other areas of your life.
Exactly. Yeah. Can shape you and the perception of who you think you are. But it's, I don't know. It was an interesting transition for me because, in many ways it made it easier, but it also was like, oh, now, because Nike's really good at putting people in a box of like, this is what you do. And this is, kind of your job.
Yeah.
And then like
a box with a label that is so long that it wraps all the way around. Senior Global.
Yeah. Yes. And
what do I have to do to get global in my title?
Global?
Yeah.
Oh.
Assistant Global Professor of Graphic Design at Global Portland Global State
Well, I think
University,
you already could because
Global.
this, somebody could be listening to this in halfway across the world. And
That's true.
you're global. So.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
who knows where the rats that are in this studio came from? They could be, vacationing from France or something.
Yeah.
They do have that baguette over there that they're gnawing on.
Like an American Tail. Was it Fievel? Where was Fievel from?
I forget, but I think it's something sad, if I recall.
Yes.
Absolutely. And then you end up at the North Face, a very different, even like sector of the athletic market, climbing that mountain.
Yeah.
Although most of the people wearing the North Face are not climbing the mountain. They're picking up their kids from soccer practice.
Right. Yeah, they're picking up their kids from soccer practice, or they're waiting in line for coffee, or
they're giving a presentation at a budget meeting.
Exactly. Yeah. Wearing a nice little puffer vest, or yeah.
See, I'm folksy. I'm going to tell you how you're going to cut your budget today. You're going to have to fire 500 employees.
And what are you wearing?
Well, obviously, I have 2 puffer jackets on.
Okay,
that's
2.
how you know that I'm an authority.
Yeah, I mean, it was a nice transition for me because I felt like I was in this space where everything was like fast, like going faster. Like our product must make you faster, must make you lighter, must make you able to defy gravity in any way possible.
Has the North Face thought of, delivering their product in those little monitors that Sonic the Hedgehog breaks? The ones with rings, or Dr. Robotnik's face, or the fast shoes. What are some other boxes? The shields. Yeah.
I'm just hearing the sound effects from Sonic. Yeah, like the little rings bouncing around.
Yeah, he hits one of the little robots, which for some reason, when he's in his circle form, he can destroy. But if they just bump into him, Sonic drops all his rings. Yeah. Imagine if you're on the Max, say, and somebody bumps into you, and then your wallet just explodes everywhere. I feel like that's going to be like a thing that you try to fix. Yeah. Why doesn't Sonic look into this?
Yes.
Get pockets, Sonic. What's your deal? Why are the rings bouncing everywhere?
And he's got good people around him. He's got like the Tails and
Tails knows how to fly a biplane. You can figure out how to put your rings in a wallet, Sonic.
Come on, Sonic. Get it together. Get it together, Sonic. Yeah, so I mean, going to the North Face was cool because I feel like I'm drawn to brands that have great DNA and archives too. And the North Face has been one of those companies that I'm like, it's always been on my radar, but it's like, they have some great historical context and DNA and, in the outdoor space. Yeah. So it felt like, this is a cool experience to learn more about the outdoor industry. And living in the Pacific Northwest is like, I don't take enough, I don't experience it enough. Like I need to do it more, but
well, it's also interesting to think of like that's kind of after, lockdown, but that is a time when so many people are actually, I had never really done a lot of hiking in this city, despite being the thing that you can do here until then. And I think that's true for a lot of people too. Like, this real rediscovery of like, you can get outside the city and have a good time. You do need to kind of be dressed for it.
You have to be dressed. Exactly. Yeah. But it was another kind of jump from like, going from a giant brand to kind of a smaller brand that's just starting to build their foundation of who they are, to the North Face, which is, again, a bigger brand who's been very established. So there's this kind of like back and forth of like pendulum swings of like going from big brand to little brand, which is, it's great because you get malleable at this point where I'm like able to go between the two.
Yeah. These days you are contracting out at Adidas, the other big, kind of shoe global giant, global guts.
Yep. The Germans,
you should. You should get in contact with, corporate office and see if they have your band's Wikipedia page.
Yeah, yeah. If they are familiar with who might be the who created that page, I don't know. Maybe yeah, in a small village in Germany, somewhere in the German countryside. Yeah, I think the city that Adidas is based in is the name of the city is about 30 characters long, and there's no like easy way to say it.
Wow.
So
And I thought characters were welcome in the USA. That's a joke for people 15 years older than the average listener of this show. Oh boy.
Yeah, so it's Herzo. They call it Herzo. It's kind of near Nuremberg, I think. But anyways, I've never been there. I haven't been there yet. Hopefully someday they want to send me there.
Hey.
Yeah, they've got a rich history, rich DNA and archive, which is something I love to geek out on. Somebody came over from that office and they built this whole like archive timeline of the brand in Miro, and it was like, whoa, that's really cool. And they had all these like moments where like it was very kind of tying back to the whole music thing. Like I feel like that brand, they've tried to connect to music more than say Nike. Nike's doing a lot more now, but Adidas has tried to, obviously with, hip hop in the 80s with Run DMC.
Absolutely.
That was such a huge moment for them because, I feel like hip hop culture kind of chose Adidas over Nike.
Yeah.
And they built that starting there and then connecting to many different areas of music. So
I did want to circle back. We were talking before the recording. This is kind of not your first podcast experience, too. Admittedly, the other one is a little bit on the art side. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I was telling you that this opportunity has given me a kind of resurgence of my interest in comedy, so I love what you're doing. And
thank you.
Yeah. And I think it's probably around the years of the pandemic, maybe 2020, maybe a little bit earlier than that. I was getting really into podcasts and comedy podcasts. And I was working with the one that I was really into was Tim Heidecker's podcast, Office Hours.
A big name podcast from a big name guy.
Yeah.
In both the literal and figurative sense.
Well, yeah, I was really into, his comedy with Tim and Eric and, this like really off kilter stuff and stuff of that ilk. And it was really, once he started the podcast, I started following it and I was really into what they were doing. And then they were introducing art into their weekly podcast releases. So like, the cover of whatever that art was for that episode.
A gauntlet I've well learned is quite hard to throw down for yourself. If you're wondering why the show art changed, that's a big part of it. Absolutely.
It's hard. Yeah. But I think for me, it was like, okay, I reached out to them. I'm like, hey, I love what you guys are doing. Do you need any art for the podcast? And they're like, yes, please. So I started working with them on some podcast art for the weeks. And they would throw me these like general kind of like bit ideas where they were like, we're going to combine this guest with this musical guest and we're going to have a bit around it. So we want this theme to have kind of like showcase that. And so, yeah, I was able to put together some fun photos. They would send me photos and stuff, and that was fun. And then I was able to actually integrate some of my illustration work too. Like I think there was a couple episodes where I was able to do some illustration that really, it was fun because now, like if you watch the podcast, there's a lot of artists that are fans of the show. So they have like fan art on the wall. I think my art is maybe on the wall somewhere, but yeah.
I try to do that to a limited degree in here. We're just kind of out of space is the main problem.
Yeah,
the big hot dog on a wall. As much as I've talked so much about hot dogs on this episode, I'm realizing, but there is a big hot dog on the wall right behind you, and that eats up a lot of the room. If I'm being honest,
it does.
It's a costume. I can wear that hot dog,
and it's also mustard and relish, so that sparks my interest.
That's a real kind of Milwaukee dog.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but if that were a real hot dog, I would gladly eat that. Gladly.
It's probably made of very similar materials to what's in a real hot dog. So polyester and I think actually just exclusively polyester now that I think about it. Because if you are, no shade to the North Face, if you are freezing in, say, a mountain pass, like over the winter, I think I would maybe actually rather have that costume than even a jacket, because I think that would be warmer inside based on my experiences wearing it.
And then you just have to get it like with Gore-Tex or something. Gore-Tex, so it's like water repellent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's mainly like people repellent right now.
People
like
repellent.
If they see you walking down the street in the hot dog costume, they, you'd be shocked at how fast they cross to the other side. Maybe there's a smile. Maybe you get a smile. They don't want to engage with you still, even after the smile.
Yeah.
Gotta go. No, thank you, hot dog man. I've seen I Think You Should Leave. I know that there's trouble heading my way.
Right. Yeah. Steer clear of the hot dog man. I would be intrigued, and I would want to know more about the hot dog man. Yeah.
Well, tune in to our season 7, diving deep into the hot dog man. How did he get to this position of power in our society, and how can we defeat him? I'm curious. Are there any other things that sort of come up for you as things that you like maybe have had as mistakes over your career or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say probably like working in environments where I think to nowadays it's really important to have a sense of like emotional intelligence in working with people, because
Absolutely.
people can tend to lose their cool pretty quickly. And I've been in a lot of situations with people where I feel like it just became kind of like, oh, this is the normal, like, this is how it is. Like, people just get mad at each other. I remember being in meetings where like people just really were able to just start going at each other like at the throat, because they were so mad about a creative direction on some, menial thing. And it was like, oh my gosh, like this is just the norm. And I never got to a point where I like yelled at anybody, but I had feelings sometimes in leaving meetings where I was like, oh, that could have gone way better.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's so easy to get overheated. And I think I see this in students a lot, personalizing an idea too much.
Yeah.
And then to attack the idea or even to suggest changes to it, that is an attack on you.
Yeah. And just the amount of like productive time that is lost when you're like I remember, a couple times maybe where I was like, oh, leaving a meeting and, the tension was high and people were arguing or yelling at each other. And then like, I'm like, I didn't get anything done that day. I went back to my desk and like, I'm just like trying to cool down. And like, man, that was crazy what just happened. So, just being able to really, I don't know, just have a good sense of like emotional intelligence and working in an environment, because not taking it personal. It's a job.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. So so those are like areas where, I definitely think like I've learned a lot. Maybe there were some mistakes made and feelings were hurt, but it's really important to me to know like who you are with your emotions. And
I think that is a really important thing for anyone who is working creatively to be aware of. Are there any like resources that you would recommend folks like look out for if they are wanting to kind of get more in touch with like how they can do that like kind of separation of emotional self and creative self in the workplace?
Therapy? That's a good place to start. Therapy is always great.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Find a good therapist, yoga. I mean, I think mindfulness and practices and even what we were doing before the show started, the breath work.
Oh, yeah.
Breath work is important, before a meeting that is going to be a tense moment, or during or after, that's really important as well. So
I think that is actually a really good like thing to leave people with, is like just this is a time not just for work but in society where we really should be more present in terms of like where we are with our emotions. Like being able to pay attention to that is really, really key to success in anything.
Yeah. And
the more that you practice that kind of stuff, the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would strongly like suggest, go, find some stuff on DBT, find some stuff on ACT. Like it's helpful, at the very least, just doing some breathing, slow breathing. It's great. thank you so much for being here, Colin.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been a delight. Where can people find more about your work?
Well, I am on Instagram. ColinStrandbergDesign.com is my website. And yeah, you can find me around, hopefully doing some more projects within the illustration space. And so if you're looking for illustrators, hit me up.
Thank you again so much. Hey, also, listeners, thank you. Thank you for staying with us through this whole season, especially if you're new to the show. I hope you stick with us because we are going to be publishing some new content all throughout the summer. In 2 weeks' time, I will have some updates on what that is. It is a very exciting new project. You are really going to love what we have in store. But if this is your first time listening, be sure to subscribe wherever you found the show. Or if you just found it floating around in the ether, visit us on the web at dididothat.design to figure out some places that you can. Substack, one of those. Apple Podcasts, one of those. YouTube, Spotify. These are all great places that you can go to listen to this show. I will say, big advocate for the site. If you want to just explore things very easily and see some visuals, the cursed comps that go along with each and every episode, you can find the full catalog there. Again, the address to know is dididothat.design. Speaking of those other services, if you've got a moment, please give us a rating, a review. Written ratings, very helpful for Apple Podcasts. Comments, very helpful for Spotify. But, just telling a friend is a really great thing that doesn't take any time and doesn't require you to come up with a screen name or whatever. And, great way to celebrate the end of this season, which I think has been a really fun one, even though this has been a very wild time in so many ways. This has been Did I Do That? Season 6. I'm Sean Schumacher. And as we always say at the close of every episode,
you got me.
You got me. Okay, that's what we're going to say. Bye! Was it everything you dreamed of and more?
Oh, beyond. It kind of brought me back, conjured the whole Nardwar thing.
Oh yeah,
it was like, I know he has like a sign off thing. It's, what is it, like
doot 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 doot
doot doot. And I was thinking about that in my head, and I'm like, doot doot doot. Do I say doot 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 doot?
I did have someone give me the Nardwar back earlier this. I forget who it was, but that was definitely the genesis of this bit. Is Nardwar doing that bit?
Okay.
And so often getting kicked in the teeth by it.